All of you, I think majority of you drive a car or at least a bike. Now, what is the most integral component of your car? There are two things. Now, one is called as a brake and one is called as an accelerator. Now, what is the tumor suppressor gene? The tumor suppressor gene is the brake that is there in your car. If there is no brake in the car, can you imagine what will be the problem in the car? That is exactly the thing that happens when there is a mutation of the tumor suppressor gene. The parallel example of this is your car has an, say, accelerator, and then you also have an engine in which the car is running. What if that there is only one engine and that is one enough? But what if that one engine is multiplied by 4 times? That is something called as an oncogene that is getting activated. So this is my child's understanding or children's understanding about a tumor suppressor gene. So that means a tumor suppressor group of genes. Genes make proteins. Genes are just the carrier. Okay, so it is like politicians. Politicians are just people, but the policies that they make are going to affect your or my lives. So the genes are tumor suppressor genes, but the proteins that they make are tumor suppressor proteins, and these proteins are responsible for modulating the growth cycle of a say a cell. Now there are a few pathways they do. Example, some control mitosis, some control the gene expression as such. We are not going to talk what about this. A couple of things in our surgery class that are important. Can you name some tumor suppressor genes, sir? At least two famous, or at least for surgeons. Yes, sir. So what is the cancer that you are required to know? The P53 gene mutation?
Colorectal.
Colorectal cancer. Okay. I will be more happy if you had said that this P53 story starts by inducing a group of syndromes called as Lee-Fromeni. Okay. Now, these are not only talking about colons, but can you tell me what are the other cancers that occur in a P53? Sir, they are leukemia, they are sarcoma, breast, and brain. Colon is a small part. Okay. Now, like this one, I have more important gene called as APC. What is the protein that is in relation, or how does that APC gene produce the tumor suppressor action? Hello. Sir, it does through a pathway that is known as APC beta catenin pathway. Okay. So this does with a pathway called as this beta catenin pathway. That means what is important is if APC is there, remember that beta catenin is low. If APC is not there, that means beta catenin is high, and that is responsible for making more adenomas, etc. Okay, so these are the tumor suppressor genes. On a parallel note, what are oncogenes or proto-oncogenes? Hello. What are proto-oncogenes? Can you tell me by definition what are proto-oncogenes? This is important, sir. Hello. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, I am waiting for an answer, please.
If sir is a oncogene, but if their mutation is occurring, then is translated into tumors.
Okay, chalo. Then I will make things simple. Remember that my job is to, I told you that car example. Now, who contains a proto-oncogene? Do you have a proto-oncogene, you? The answer is yes, sir. We all contain a proto-oncogene. Remember that proto-oncogenes are those normal genes that we contain whose products promote cell proliferation. This is that simple thing, sir. In normal human being, there are genes whose proteins are responsible for promoting the cells to divide. These group of genes are called as proto-oncogenes. Now, what it requires is the proto-oncogenes need a mutation, and the mutation that the proto-oncogene has will make it into an oncogene. Now, oncogenes thus are a mutated form of a proto-oncogene or an overexpressed variety of a proto-oncogene. That means an abnormal proto-oncogene, and the abnormal proto-oncogene makes a self growth promotion. That means it is not listening to anyone, it just goes on dividing by itself. The material that a gene produces, exactly like the way I told you, are called oncoprotein. The gene is oncogene, the chemical that it produces or the protein that it produces is called as an oncoprotein. So please remember this simple algorithm in that. Okay. Now the oncoprotein could have been many factors. Example, say for example, PDGF. Do you know what is PDGF? Derived growth factor. Very good. That means the genes could be exactly manufacturing something that looks like a peptide derived growth factor. Okay. So these are the multiple things to talk about in this one. And when you talk about, can you name me some points about, or can you name me some proto-oncogenes, sir? The best example of a proto-oncogene is ERBB1. Remember this very simple name, ERBB1. What is ERBB1? ERBB1 is the name of a proto-oncogene which encodes for something called epidermal growth factor receptor. Now, epidermal growth factor receptors are normal things. We all need an epidermal growth factor receptor. The problem is when it becomes mutated, there is an overexpression not only of one epidermal growth factor. If you need one epidermal growth factor, the mutation of ERBB1 proto-oncogene now becomes an oncogene. There are 10 EGFR growth factors. The receptor remains the same. The number of the growth that happens, that increases tremendously. The best example of this is seen in an adenocarcinoma of a lung. And hence, in treatment, they use those anti-EGFR factors. Another one is very close to our knowledge in surgery, ERBB2. Do you know what is this one responsible for? Yes, sir. Something called HER2. Very good. So overexpression can produce what problem? You know that? It's a HER2 positive breast cancer. Okay. So these are the things to remember, sir, in a proto-oncogene. Right. So we can now talk about tyrosine kinases, but we don't have time. There are various pathways in which tyrosine kinase activation can do that. But sir, today this question is asking you only two questions: tumor suppressor and proto-oncogenes. One day when we'll talk about tumor biology, then I think I'll be again teaching you about what are these boring chapters in surgery. Okay, so now the question.